everyone. We are going to be speaking about the IoT security. A couple of words about us. We are both members of the Leica Cruise Dev team, as you can see by our cool t-shirts. And also we co-founders at a startup called Avul. So what the IoT? Maybe it's the insecurity of things, or maybe it's the Internet of Threats. As we can see later, these definitions have some truth. But the IoT is, of course, is the Internet of Things, technology trend of connection any device that has on and off switch to the Internet. So it can be a coffee maker, washing machines, cell phones, and many other devices. If device has on and off switch, that chances are it can be part of the IoT. As the analyst from Gartner firm says, there are over 5 billion smart devices now, and its count grows. So so in 5 years we will have 38 billion devices connected. So what's the problem with the IoT security? The problem is easy. Almost all the IoT devices are vulnerable. So let's shortly describe most common vulnerabilities recently founded IoT devices. The first one is predictable credentials or default credentials. For example, some Belkin wireless devices has a VPS pin based on MAC address, so attacker can predict that pin and connect to device. And as example about Sukasa home smart home controller, which has as such SH case which stored in immutable device memory. So this case is the same for all kind of devices. So if attacker extracts this case from one device, he can use it for any device of this kind. The next one is access to private IP. For example, smartwatches. TomTom has an interesting feature of reading and listening and also writing files over USB. So there is no guarantee when you buy these watches that anyone that its firmware is unmodified. So someone can modify its firmware and use it for his goals. The next is also about Sukasa smart home controller, which can be controlled over HTTP. So it runs HTTP server, and the problem is HTTP server is misconfigured. So you can list files from this device and found a root password and connect over SSH with as a root. Also, because of smart devices sometimes need to send sensible data to the cloud or to the other devices, this data should be protected. So devices should use cryptography, but the problem that these devices has low computing power, so strong cryptography using of strong cryptography is impossible. So developers use their homemade algorithm and XOR with constant gamma, which is bad, and so on. There are SQL injections and CSRF, so smart devices are vulnerable. And why it's so? It's because there are more, there are over 500 vendors and a lot of different platforms and architectures and other things that you can see on this slide.
Okay, so why should we care? Oh. So we have several threat models. It depends of how our Internet of Things device connects to the world. It can be either use internet directly or indirectly. It can be accessible only from intranet or it can use only cellular or Bluetooth network. So let's look at the picture. Here is the standard home network with attackers. This attacker has a direct connection to the Internet of Things device, so it can be done via internet if Internet of Things device has public IP, so he can attack it from internet. Also, he can attack it using cellular or Bluetooth network. Another attacker can somehow hijack connections between Internet of Things devices with their cloud. In such case, he can attack the devices, compromise them, and then he can even attack your own PC. Also, we can see this attacker, he can firstly attack your PC and, for example, via cross-site request forgery, then attack your Internet of Things devices. And another attacker can be just your guest who is in your home network and it attacks your Internet of Things devices. So how we can defend? We can use either host-based intrusion prevention system or network-based intrusion prevention system. Host-based intrusion prevention system almost impossible because Internet of Things devices are almost low power. A lot of different software vendors, different architectures, and another problem is that the majority of Internet of Things devices, they don't have any legitimate way to run something on it. So the more realistic is to use network-based IPS, but we still have some problems with it because there is a lot of devices. We have a lot of protocols. They're really different. So we need a good, this means high-cost hardware to filter all this traffic. And also it can't help us against all the attacks. For example, it can use it can protect only from some standard or well-known attacks, and using heuristic methods is limited. The same problem we have, it's that the hardware of our device should be good. And also network-based IPS don't have any protection for cellular and Bluetooth devices for different reasons. So any existing solutions, we have 4 devices in the internet, 1 device on the market, and no devices can help against every attackers. So how most of these devices works? So they are stands here between our home network and internet service provider and protects you against this attacker and partially against this attacker. But we still have problems with attacker from our internal local network and from attacker who tries to compromise your Internet of Things device using direct connection. So comparison of Internet security devices. As you can see, Suju is a bad coaster beer, but it's joke, of course. This is much better. So as you can see, the price of all devices is almost about $300. Only Suju have a bit lower cost. So as also you can see that Shield networks have some questions. It's because for 5 last months the website of Shield is not accessible, and only on website of ISUS networks you can find a reference to the Shield device, and there is only few information. It's picture, it's button to order, its price, and that's all. So one more about Numa. We have ordered Numa device, but it was about 6 months ago, as I remember. And we still don't have it. And nodal industries stop asking to our questions by email. Hope we will get it somehow. And as also should be mentioned, Box by Bitdefender, it's the only device that is already released. It has a bit smaller bandwidth, but it's enough for almost all home networks. So how can we make a protection better? As you remember, the majority of these devices stands here. But if we will put it over here, we will make a better protection. For example, we can protect against attacker from internal network or from CSRFs used which go in that way. Because it will protect only Internet of Things devices, not the whole network. So at Avuln we try to make a device that will will stands here and solves the majority of networks. It's not a working device. We are still working on it, and it's what we want to see in our device. Hope someone will make all of this. The first, it stands in local network. It's because we want to protect against internal attackers, so it should be in local networks. It also should separate PC devices and Internet of Things devices, because there can be a lot of PCs in your network. It can generate a lot of traffic, and it's much easier to filter traffic of only Internet of Things devices. So another options is to split every Internet of Things devices in separate VLAN, because in most cases they shouldn't communicate in each other. And when, for example, your toaster asks your refrigerator something, it seems strange because they shouldn't communicate. Also, it's usage of signatures and heuristic only for those devices that you have in your network, because it's obvious you shouldn't analyze the traffic for example, Samsung Smart TV if you have only Philips Smart TV. And of course, we hope it will have a pretty design and callable type. So demo, Anton. It's just example of with our device. As I said, it's not it's not ready for release. It's just in research state. Oh, how to make it full screen? Great. Okay, so as you can see, there is some devices. Its security is disabled. Yeah. It's an example to attack Belkin memo switch. Yeah, thank you. Belkin memo switch, there is a command line injection in it, so we try to nothing. It's yeah. So almost nothing. Yeah. Okay, so I will just tell you. There is a command line injection. Now we have a working exploit because protection is disabled, and when we here is the SSH, oh, not SSH, passwd password is written. It's listing files and so on, so on. And now we're adding our device, which is in local network. Just add. Here's it. And enabling security status. Then run exploit again. And it blocks connection, so we have a Python exception. Everything is bad for exploit, but good for us. And over here is shown that one attacks attempt. Okay. Oh. Great. Okay, thank you. So, conclusion, Internet of Things vendors still don't care about security a lot. Now it's the situation much better, but still some obvious problems with Internet of Things devices, like directory traversal. It's really hard to find in real world, but in world of Internet of Things devices, it's easy to find. There is no protection for cellular and Bluetooth networks at all, for different reasons. For example, in Russia, it's impossible to sell cellular network, cellular hotspot, cellular access point, sorry, without license. And even if you have this license, you should. So it's long story. It's really hard to make such devices. So this, the existing devices don't protect from internal attacker, and this is the reason why existing protection can't help you. So now it's like from this book, the assistance of drawing person is the hands of those persons themselves. So protect your devices by yourself. Thank you. Do you have some questions? No questions? Oh, yeah.
Test. Da. So, if the device uses VLANs to separate the different segments, different networks,
Yeah.
a network for each device, how does this affect their ability to communicate with each other? Do you then have to like set up port forwarding for each of them? If I want to stream to my TV,
Yeah, it's as I said, we don't have this device, and it's the the problems that we can see. It's some ways of solve these problems. But of course, if we have different, each Internet of Things device is in his own VLAN, then it's impossible, as you said, stream video from your phone to smart TV. Yeah, it's impossible, but maybe it's possible to add a feature. For example, you have some application on your phone. You just tell that, okay, I want to communicate with smart TV. Press a button and you're in one VLAN. Maybe it's a solution of what you said.
Do you use any IDS, IPS solution on it, like open source, I don't know, Snort or anything like that?
We try to use Snort, but it has some disadvantages. Now we try to find something better.
So the hardware is not powerful enough to do full packet inspection, right?
Yeah, it's really a problem to full packet inspection, especially problem when you try to inspect TLS traffic. You should either man in the middle this connection, which not good in all cases.
What kind of CPU did you try, or what kind of SoC, what kind of chipset?
Oh. Do you remember what CPU we use? I don't remember. I don't work with hardware.
I don't remember concrete model, but it's MIPS architecture. So it's
Well, because there are some processors like chipsets called KVM, which are especially designed for doing packet inspection and handling tasks like this, rather than other low-cost SoCs.
Okay. Yeah, we try to find a good configuration. Yeah.
Thanks for the talk. The idea is interesting. I think everybody wants to do these devices or to have these. But I have two questions. One is simple. I mean, is your project going to be open source, open hardware? Did you upload it somewhere? Can somebody just download it, put it in a virtual machine to just try to find bugs in your web interface, or just to make sure that the whole
I
thing is
think
really
it will
secure?
be partially open sourced. So some part of this project will be open sourced, another part will be closed.
Okay.
Like many projects do.
I see. And the second question actually is, I think is, how I can clearly see, and many of us clearly see the limitations of Bluetooth, cellular networks inspection, and like supporting these kinds of devices, not even mentioning all our mesh networks and proprietary radio frequency protocols devices you would never think are communicating radio frequency. So how do you see that vendors and yourself would be able to address this? I mean, like if there are 10 radio frequency protocols, or not necessarily radio frequency, how your device is going to handle this, including Bluetooth cellular, but
We don't going to protect cellular or Bluetooth network because it's country specific to protect cellular network, and we don't have any ideas how to securely protect your Bluetooth device, because you don't want to bring something with you. It's obvious thing, so maybe it's just every person should turn off Bluetooth when he don't use it, something like this.
No. What I basically mean is, for example, you have a mesh network. Imagine the Nest, Google Nest, and all these Zigbee-based mesh network, ad hoc networks, which are like, you know the protocol, Chromecast, and all these. These are mesh networks which are created ad hoc, and they can use additional layers of protocols on top. How you are going to solve this communication, because these devices have to communicate between them, and you cannot, if you jam them, and some attackers can remotely try to eavesdrop or inject packets into those, like packet-in-packet kind of attacks, right?
Yes. I think that What you said, we don't take into considerations its part, so I can tell you something concrete. So,
Yeah,
it's interesting fact. Yeah, I will Google it later.
It's not for you, it's for also for other vendors as well.
Yeah.
I can clearly see. It just was a question if you think about that or.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe another questions?
Any other
So-
questions? We still have time, so please feel free to ask.
So if you have any questions, we will be here in CTF zone. You can ask.
Yeah. So thank you for your attention.